Come on.
He loves me. I'm excited to have you here today because I feel like you're going to offer a very unique perspective. This is something I've wanted to do for 2 years and just connect with creative people who have inspired me and who I think are really cool and who have something to say and offer the world.
Oh.
So, first...
Could I cry? That might happen.
There's tissue.
I'm Lizzy. I'm an actor, an artist in Chicago. I use gender-neutral pronouns, they, them. But identify as trans and non-binary. And queer. I don't know if I said that.
What are your thoughts on coming out as it applies to queer people?
Someone once said to me, like, when I first came out, like, oh, well, now you'll be coming out forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's something that just, like, straight folks don't have to do.
Yeah.
But, like, even at your job, there's a level of, like, when do I say this? Sometimes I forget that I'm like, oh, I have to, like, reveal this part of myself, even though it's, like, been with me for so long at this point, or, like, living out of the closet. I would like to say that, like, I think it's absolutely necessary for people to come out because, as I'm sure you know, you feel trapped after a certain point. And on some level you are holding yourself in there. And the moment you let yourself be free, like, you grow in ways that you didn't think, like, existed.
Yeah.
Or at least that's how I felt. Like, the level of happiness I would reach every time I would come out to someone that I, like, cared about was something that I had never experienced before. That was just, like, coming out as a lesbian. This time was a little bit slower and more fluid and just, like, as I felt it. And some people approached me about it. They just, like, noticed that I, like, changed my hair or that my clothes were changing, and they would just ask, like, oh, are you trans? And I was like, I don't know if that's something you can just ask a person. It was a little bit easier because there's still, like, outside of all of those identities that I just said, there's, like, a core me always that has never really changed. And holding on to that makes it a lot easier, like, knowing that there's, like, a through note of yourself always outside of, like, the identities that we prescribe to.
But I feel like if people connect to their inner truth and to who they are, they'll know that they're more than the skin they're in. When did you come out as trans?
I still kind of am. Like,
Yeah.
I recently told my parents and family members, like, a month and a half ago. Because I started low doses of testosterone,
Okay.
I was like, they'll see it. Like, there are subtle changes in, like, just my muscle growth and my voice dropping a little bit. My presentation hasn't, like, changed a ton. But I also, like, had top surgery too.
Yeah.
And that was, like, I think a huge indicator for them. Because I still didn't say anything then. I was having, like, other complications as well, as, like, to why I wanted the full top surgery, but it was kind of half and half, like, half cosmetic, half, like, medically necessary. I feel like I'm living double lives, and it was inhibiting my, like, personal growth. After a certain point, like, your self-respect has to kick in, you know?
Completely.
My sister being, like, a huge supporter of me, and was just like, fuck it, you know? Like, if people don't accept you because of, like, what you look like or who you are, like, why would you want them in your life anyway? And I was like, well, what if it's family? And she was like, then they're not your family.
No.
That's not how family treats each other.
No.
You know, just because you change doesn't mean your relationship has to. And, like, you're changing for the better, for the good of yourself.
Yes.
So anyone who doesn't support that, like, doesn't really deserve
Rise up
you.
with you, yeah.
Yeah.
Completely.
I, like, heavily identify as both trans and non-binary. So it's almost, sometimes I think when folks are coming out as bi, they're less accepted because people are like, you're making this more complicated on yourself. And it's like, I'm not doing this to me.
I know. I know.
This, like, me being the way that I am happened for me, not to anyone else. Like, it's not about you. And sometimes I feel like telling people that I'm non-binary, they think it's trendy or that it's like attention seeking behavior when it's really just like who I am.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think obviously like folks in the queer community understand that, but I think people outside who understand and like choose to live in their ignorance and not try, their vision becomes very black and white. When I look back at my entire life, like the ways that I tried and chose to conform reflects my true identity. Like I was a dancer and a cheerleader. Like I did a lot of sports that, so I was around like
very feminine.
Yeah, very feminine like groups of women because I was like trying to conform.
Yeah.
And I loved doing it. I loved dance and I loved cheerleading, but I probably would have been a lot happier doing it if I had been like presenting this way. Being in a locker room at 13 when you're gay is like, you know.
Yeah, yep.
I don't know if I was like conscious enough in like puberty to like be aware that there was something else going on. But when I look back at it now, absolutely.
Yeah. What age did you know that you liked women?
I started vocalizing that around like 4 and 5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like when I had babysitters and stuff, I would say like, I want to be their boyfriend.
Okay.
Or like whenever I would play like house with my friends, I was always the husband.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Like
so that also shows like
yeah.
the further discovery of self. It's crazy how we know ourselves as children and then we just slowly forget, and then life's about healing that and refining that.
I know.
It really is, and like bringing your inner child back to life.
The unrealistic expectations you set up for yourself as you grow. Like,
that's what I'm breaking through right now.
Yeah. It's absurd.
It
like
really
the story you create, like the narrative you believe you have to stick to, where like literally no one said like, hey kid, you have to do this.
I know.
You know?
I know.
Like no one.
And even if your parents like put that on you or your teachers or whoever.
Yeah.
The way you adapted that in your own mind.
Totally.
Do you have any influential people that you think of when you think of coming out?
My very first girlfriend, we kind of came out together.
Okay.
And that was like absolutely necessary, I think, for both of us. I learned a lot about myself in that relationship. I learned a lot about my, just like outside of my sexuality, like a lot about my trauma and like toxic behaviors that I had just like picked up from like family and like being a product of the fucking patriarchy, you know, like what I believe to be true about like gender and the world and everyone. Yeah. Her name is Rachel. And she is a fantastic human being. Like the theater department at Aquinas was really supportive of me. And my family was pretty great when I came out. Like any Midwestern family, they were like, we don't really want to talk about it. But I like kind of was like, either you get this version of me or you get nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I set like that was like the first boundary that I like realized I was setting for myself. I don't think I realized it in the moment that like, oh, this is what a healthy boundary looks like. I just knew that like, I can't exist in your presence as like this old version of me anymore. It doesn't exist. It's not real. I think that if you are in touch with your like self-alignment and are conscious of that, the more you concentrate on that, the more you realize that like other people's imbalances will not affect you as you move through the world. Setting other people up, we talked about unrealistic expectations and like how it sets you up for failure in like relationships with yourself or other people. Like you can go into any situation or scenario like thinking and feeling like someone is going to react in a specific way and they're just not going to. And I think the quicker you learn how to like shed that, the like your life will become significantly easier. Not that I don't have expectations for people. I do. I think there's like basic expectations of like, I respect you, you respect me, we're gonna like meet our relationship with love. But like outside of that, I don't think that it's healthy to like walk into relationships believing or thinking that like X, Y, and Z needs to happen.
Yeah.
Let things unfold. Also, let other people like find things out about you. I think being queer, you often feel like you have something to prove, and you just don't.
Yeah.
You know? Or if you like feel and think a specific way about something and like you want someone to know that information, sometimes it's best for that information to like come out of you organically instead of like forcing that perspective on someone. Like it'll come out when it's ready.
A moment that you felt like fully yourself. It could be in any part of your process, even just for a glimpse of a moment.
After my surgery, you have to go back the following day, like 15 hours after. Like,
wow.
Yeah, like I was sent home, which is crazy to me that I like, didn't stay overnight. You have to go back and they have to just like make sure that like everything is settling okay. Yeah. And the moment they took my my like bandages off and I saw myself, I was like kind of out of it because I was on drugs, but just like staring at myself and like the tears just like, I don't know, like it's like subconscious crying. Like I was like connected to my emotional self, but I was like looking at me for the very first time. It was like someone who is colorblind and like puts on those glasses and like can see color. That's as close as to like what I can describe that experience was like. I was really quiet and just standing there, and I think I like turned to the doctor and said, "I'm me." Like that's like what came out of me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like I'm me.
That's really amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I really
of course.
appreciate it.
Oh,
He wants in on the hug.
Oh, Jean's probably gay.
Yeah.
Yeah.